hear me? Can I hear me? Testing. Can y'all hear me? I tried to test the mic before I started job. Cooling now. Oh, hold on, gotta get my chai. Tea. Let's just listen, we're gonna be quick because I gotta go. I'm heading out of town. I'll be out of town all week, but I was like, I gotta sit in, break bread with my people. Them. This might cut out. I got a warning when I sat down here. StreamYard was like, your payment didn't go through, and like so they might cut my lights off. StreamYard said my payment didn't go through, and there was a big red sign, and I'm like, let me click on live and see if they let me go live. They let me go live, so I don't know. They threatening me, So let me put that little banner across the bottom. I don't need Dr. Fubar money. I don't need Dr. Fubar money. I don't need that 700,000. But if you can send me a buck or two, to sustain the BroDiallo broadcast, I appreciate it. You say the volume's low? Oops, hold on. Audio, microphone volume. I'm the microphone fiend. How's that? I increased the microphone volume. Maybe that's because I ain't paid my bill. Do I still get access to like the HD camera? I don't know. Anyway, like, share, subscribe, become a Patreon, CashApp, Venmo. Support the show, man. It's a little embarrassing if I get on here and I log on. Y'all can't see it, can y'all? Y'all can't see the red bar? No, I don't see it on the screen. Anyway, I got on here. There's a big red bar say you pay your bills. And so I'll see. But anyway, let's jump in with both feet. First thing I want to say is, because I don't have time. Seriously, I seriously don't have time. I got to go get me some Uncle Eddie's. Here's the thing. When I travel, I eat a lot of junk food when I'm travel. It helps. I just do. Any excuse. I'm out of vegan Kit Kats. So I went and got some Justin's peanut butter cups, and I got some Justin's peanut butter M&M Justin's, and I got some Uncle Eddie's. So I'm gonna be high. I'm gonna be sky high on the trip. Refined sugar. Shout out to refined and processed sugar. Everybody hates on you, but the stock price never go down. So somebody lying about that too. But I digress. Let me tell you the funniest, dumbest shit I've seen all week. The last time I was broadcasting, it was the BET Awards. And it's funny because when BET first came out, I had we used to call my sister BET. And then we called it for Black Itty Bitty Tanisha. She had this beautiful chocolate skin and this big cloud of black hair, and she was a scrawny little girl, and we used to like BET, Black Itty Bitty Tanisha. And we know itty bitty starts with an I, but give us a license. We were kids too. But that's it. That's the only fond memory I have of BET. Positive thing I say. BET has been, since its inception, Black bourgeoisie anti-African propaganda. And Black folks, we do not recognize. There was a time when I was young, Black folks there was this wonderful book called Psychological Warfare, and Black people were always talking about being brainwashed, mind control, and psyops. There was a lot of talks about it, but Black folks were reading a lot of right-wing reactionary materials, Behold a Pale Horse, and they trying to, manipulate our minds, and subliminal images and subtle gestures. And it used to be. Now, I don't see that as much anymore, which is good because a lot of that was bullshit. Not the psychological warfare, because most people didn't appreciate it from the academic perspective. And a lot of people in that whole psyop, mind control media they just picked at the low-hanging fruit. But now I don't hear it so much. And most of the time when you hear somebody talk about propaganda and mind control, they always speak it from a point of that they are the authority and they're warning everyone else because they already know. And I say all the time, the primary victims of propaganda are those who believe they are immune to it. And so much propaganda and indoctrination has embedded itself in the Black community as a whole, but the conscious Black community in particular. There is so much reactionary indoctrination and propaganda following the COINTELPRO program that countered our intelligence. You know, I interact to so much Black folks, conscious, revolutionary, radical Black peoples whose intelligence has been countered. And we thought COINTELPRO was going to take away our guns and take away our aesthetic, take away our red, black, and green, our Black power symbols, and take away our Black power rhetoric, and take everything we thought that COINTELPRO was trying to take from us. We have it in abundance. All the stuff that we admire so much from the Black power era, everything, including some of the icons, some of the cult leaders and demagogues from that era, are still here today. COINTELPRO was a successful program, but if you walk through the Black community and try to find one Black person that raised their hand and say, well, COINTELPRO, I'm a successful product, no Black person will admit it. And in fact, we think the victims of COINTELPRO died or went to jail. They're out there. When the counterintelligence program was about the masses of the Black people. They were neutralizing leadership of the Black masses. The real goal of COINTELPRO was not to neutralize Black leaders, but to neutralize Black revolution, which is a collective, multi-generational endeavor. The masses, the oceans, the millions of Black folks were the real targets of COINTELPRO. But we focus on assassination, incarceration, and exile. We focus on those individual targets and we forget about the grand scheme. And I wake up every day and I'm like, man, this is a byproduct of COINTELPRO. We're living in the aftermath of an extremely successful COINTELPRO program. And now Black folks come out, so many of your leaders and demagogues. And I'm sick of saying their names. So many of your leaders and demagogues. But anyway, I digress. Let me tell you the dumbest thing. Let me tell you the dumbest shit I saw this week. Something happened on Monday, and I've been hearing about it all week, and I just giggle. And that's Glorilla apparently won a gospel Grammy, won a gospel BET award for a gospel song. Now, I never heard the gospel song. All I know is fuck nigga free. That's the only song I know from her. I think it's beyond my time. I don't think Glorilla is making music for me. She might be making some videos for me now. She might be making other things for me, but her music in particular, I prefer to watch it with the volume down, if not off. So I'm not saying I'm oblivious to Glorilla. Let me sip some tea. And there is a such thing as too much truth. I realize that, and I will try to respect that. That's good. That oat milk chai tea, boy. Anyway, what was I saying? But I'm familiar with Glorilla. Fuck nigga free. You know. And I don't know the song. That's all I know. And there was some other anthem she heard. I like her huffy voice. Right? But Black folks is like, shit, how dare she? Like sullying Christianity. Like the sacred art of gospel music and the sacred faith of Christianity. How dare BET give a Grammy to this worldly woman, this salacious woman, this Jezebel, this fuck nigga free woman. How dare you? And I'm like, man, if these Christians don't shut the, let me keep it. I'm gonna go through this tea pretty quick. That's good. I have to reset myself. Now, let me tell you something, Christians. Everybody else, you know, you can fall backwards. And let me just talk to the Christians. Christians, you have no moral authority. You have no moral high ground, and you ain't got and let me tell you what you do got. You got more nerve than a toothache. The faith of Christianity, let me tell you this, because there was a Christian nationalist, an evangelical, who came out and said something that people don't point out. that the vast majority of Zionists in the world are Christians. Christian Zionists outnumber Jewish Zionists more than 1,000,000 to 1. And the Zionist state was established by Christians, armed and funded by Christians, legitimized by Christians in the international bodies. Zionism is a Christian prophecy. Until the temple is rebuilt on the mound, Jesus Christ will not come back. So everybody's out here, the Zionists, the Jews, the Zionists. Zionism is a Christian atrocity. Facilitated, covered. Even now that insane apartheid genocide state is attacking Iran. And even right-wing commentators, liberal commentators, corporate, independent, everybody said this wouldn't happen without the approval of the United States. This would not happen by the approval of the United States. And every single president of the United States has been a Christian, including the black one. The vast majority of them have been Protestants. White Anglo-Saxon Protestants. There have been a couple of Catholics. I think Kennedy and Biden were the only two Catholic, but that's Christian. Christian nation founded on Judeo-Christian values. So, and I ain't heard one black Christian condemn Christianity. People be coming to me. Trying to jumping ahead of me. You're jumping ahead of me, Dre. Now, I don't come on your OnlyFans account and disrupt while you doing what you do on the computer. Please don't jump out ahead of me. I don't come to your job. I don't come to your OnlyFans site and disrupt and get ahead and tell the people what's about to happen on your live. So please don't jump out ahead of me. Let me, I'm getting there. So I haven't seen one Christian, not one Christian come out and say the Christian endorsement, the Christian validation and legitimizing arming and funding. And as a Christian, this offends me. Christianity has been tied to systemic child abuse. I did a whole video on it. Who are the real predators? And I looked at the stats. I looked at the court cases. I looked at the international, the national, the local, and international child abuse sting operations. And I said, are they the transgenders, the drag queens, the gays, and the Baptist, National Baptist Union, the Catholic Church? I ain't even got to say. I mean, that's just a given. Catholic priest is a synonymous with PDF files. Somebody says you out here acting like a priest. You're not going to think, oh, he's out here acting pious and righteous. You're going to think he's out here messing with children. That's how intertwined child abuse in the Catholic Church. In Canada, they went to these Catholic and religious Christian orphanages and found the corpses of babies buried all around the grounds. The Baptist Convention, the Catholic Church, and even Christian sects and Christian cults like the Jehovah's Witness and the Moron Church in Utah. They're finding systemic abuse going back decades. And I ain't seen one black Christian go online and say, why is my faith, why is my Lord and Savior always in bed and playing footsies with child predators? I ain't even talking about in your local church. I'm talking about institutionally. And the doctrine supports this too. Because I can't wear mixed fabric clothes. I can't boil a goat in its mother's milk. I can't have relations without marriage. God, and I ask Christians all the time, y'all got all these weird ass rules. And y'all got all these weird ass rules for sex. I said, where's the verse that says an adult can't go to town on a child? Where's that? Where's that explicitly? Because I know man pun man, I know an abomination. I can't lay with a man. I know I can't suffer a witch to live. I read the Bible. There's even hygiene. There's some pretty decent hygiene instructions in the Bible that a lot of Christians seem to ignore. Go read Proverbs. Probably my best book. If I had to pick a book from that fantasy graphic novel, not graphic for pictures, but graphic for the content. Rated M for mature. But all that to say, I ain't seen the same Christians that are mad at Glorilla say nothing about Zionism, Christian Zionists. And he said nothing about Christian child abuse. And then I was going to move on to the fascists, which is a big part of today's discussion. Find me a fascist movement that is not married to, united with, supported by Christian evangelical movement. Find me one. Go back to Mussolini. Go back to Adolf. Come all the way up to Trump. The evangelical church, that man that just murdered those state senators. That Christian terrorist was a Christian evangelical fascist. And I ain't heard one. I saw more outrage about Glorilla getting a gospel award for a shitty gospel song. My wife pulled it up and played it. Because I don't like gospel music. I said this and y'all try to get mad at me. Gospel music has done more harm to African people than gangster rap. And you can't be out here, the gangster rap is destroying our children. And you don't say that gospel music ain't done as much damage. Has justified more abuse, has justified more suffering, has justified more violence. And anybody that want to debate me on that. And I say maybe, because gospel music, black folks been hemming and hawing gospel music in this country for a couple of centuries. And rap is about the same age as me. So maybe if hip hop had more time, it can do more damage. But challenge me on it. Merch it. Gospel music as a genre, yes. That old rugged cross, I'm on the battlefield for my Lord, for my Lord. If I had a young, impressionable person, I'd rather them listen to trap music than gospel. And here's the bottom line. Over 90% of our people in this country, over 90% are religious. And of that 90%, the vast majority, upwards of 80% are Christian. Less than 1% of black people are identified as gangster, gang affiliated, or street culture. As harmful as gangs and street culture is, it represents a small. So black folks, telling black folks, you can pray over toxic food. You can pray over toxic food when the number one killer of black people is chronic disease related to diet and lifestyle. And most people's diet and lifestyle is dictated by their supernatural belief system. So that alone, chronic disease alone, everybody, you're more likely to die in the back of an ambulance with a clogged artery than you are in the back of a 6'4" tray after a drive-by. Just the raw numbers. And I know seeing people die and lose their sight and lose their limbs prematurely from type 2 diabetes, that's not exciting. They don't make movies about that. Like they make movies about gangster shit, Power, and all those TV shows y'all watch. So yes, I would say gospel music is more harmful to African people the world over than gangster rap could ever. If you gave me a magic wand and I could make one or the other disappear, I guess I've driven that home long enough. But I mean, like, shame on Christians. I mean, just the amount. I don't follow Christian media. I don't watch the BET Awards. Most Christians keep a wide berth around me. They don't come around me. They don't want their almighty, all-seeing pervert God to see them affiliating with the heathen. So I don't have much, but everywhere I looked this week, black folks been going off on the socials. I haven't seen it in the streets, but on the socials. And the next time If I was a Christian, if I was so lost, if I was so mental I think Christians should be more outraged about this than y'all mad at the wrong shit. Y'all mad at the wrong shit. I think if today's Christians were around during the crucifixion, they'd be more upset that Jesus is dressed like a female. You see Jesus up there with that long robe? He got on that little diaper, looked like a freak. They'd be more mad at that than the crucifixion. It's just weirdos, but I digress. That's some dumb shit. But it's been entertaining, the hypocrisy. I've had an opportunity to engage a few Christians, and they tell me about this issue like, y'all get mad at the wrong shit. There is so much dysfunction. You know, the Christianity is the handmaiden of conquerors. Christianity is the handmaiden of fascists. But I digress. Let me say one more thing while we're talking about this. I didn't post on social media, and I haven't said anything about Malcolm X's back on May 19th. Malcolm X and Dale Jones, two brothers, one that I knew personally and one that I've looked up to most of my life. Both have a birthday, and everybody's like, it's Malcolm X's 100. Malcolm X is 100. And I kind of feel that because I see all these black people posting how they love Malcolm X everywhere. Everybody out here in Chicago, at least, everybody was wearing their Malcolm X t-shirts. And everybody, there were a few gatherings, I didn't go, especially here in Chicago, of Malcolm X ceremonies honoring Malcolm's 100, Malcolm at 100s. There were academic discussions about the role and impact of Malcolm's teaching. There were drumming circles and all kind of celebrations and recognitions of Malcolm X. And I'm like, man, I don't want to say some shit. This tea is going to get me through this. So y'all could do, at this moment, I'd be asking the ancestors to give me strength, but they already gave it to me. Whenever you want to say ancestors give me strength, that means you're misappropriating the strength they already gave you. But I'm like, how to blood recent? I mean, how do I say this delicate? How do we claim to love and honor Malcolm X at 100 when the cult that is responsible for harassment, threatening, and ending his life in front of his children and wife has been the most prominent and dominant black organization for the last half century? I mean, seriously. And I don't just mean they still exist. We don't love fucking Malcolm. We love the idea of Malcolm. We love the aesthetic of Malcolm. We love the celebrations that come, the accolades and admiration that comes with associating ourselves with Malcolm. How the fuck can we claim this is our prince, as the brother said? Our beautiful black prince, when the man that mocked his death and said on a podium, behind a microphone, that he was worthy of death, that he was a traitor and was dealt with the way a traitor supposed to be dealt with. And this man can call a million black men to Washington, D.C., not once, not twice, not 3 times, but almost a half dozen times, where he's mentioned in rap songs. Here comes a prophet that I think you ought to listen to. Protect this man and all this shit. And I don't even like talking about Malcolm, because I think that Malcolm is one of the most disrespected and exploited ancestors we have. I don't think there's an ancestor who's been more exploited by Hollywood with that X movie, medallions and t-shirts and Malcolm X Day. Everybody call that man's name. And I was like, I'm not going to say nothing about it. You know, And we allow the myths about Malcolm being enlightened and woken up by the nation, being cleaned up, and give and there's so many myths about Malcolm. So yeah. So if you're wondering why didn't BroDiallo say nothing about Malcolm X 100, I was invited, but two, I was invited for an online interview and for this event, and I said y'all don't want me there. I'm gonna just fall back and let y'all have Malcolm and let y'all run with this Malcolm thing. We have not done right by Malcolm as an ancestor, as a teacher, as a martyr for our struggles, as a symbol. But let's move on. That really pissed me off, and I just like every time I think I should say something, I'm like, but y'all don't hear me. I've been saying this. If we learn nothing else from Malcolm, cults don't cultivate. We should shun cults, not participate in cults, not allow demagogues and cult leaders to have any position of authority within our community or our struggle. We ain't learned that lesson. Malcolm learned it and it cost him his life. And we learn it. We can safely accept that and we don't. But I digress. What are we here to talk about? Not our fight. Let me tell y'all something. And this is going to be quick. This is going to be quick. Start off talking about counterintelligence. Our intelligence has been countered. Our intelligence has been countered. And we don't even want it back. We don't even miss it. But I was at the No Kings March here in Chicago. You know, it's funny too. Because my oldest son was like, yeah, you know, you guys going to the No Kings March. And my wife and I, this is a couple of weeks ago. We were on our couch where we like to just, our couch consumes us. You know, just the old couple on the couch. And my son comes over. He got keys. I don't know why he still got keys. He don't live here. He don't pay no bills here. I'm really talk about letting your ancestors down. I'm letting my grandma Sonetta down. I'm breaking all her rules. First of all, I don't accept Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior. I broke her main rule. But then that whole rule, you don't need keys to mine. You don't live here. You don't pay bills here. You don't get no keys here. Anyway, our son comes over and is like, yeah. And I'm like, yeah, we going. Of course we're going. What do you want from us? Yeah, we're going. And then he leaves. And then the morning of the march, the day of the march, and it was like a midday march. It wasn't even a morning walk. My son busts in the door and he's got on his protest regalia, his backpack. I didn't ask him what's in his backpack, so I don't snitch. I've never violated the no snitch rule in the hood because I always just like, don't tell me shit. I don't want to know shit. So I never snitch, not because I'm so brave or hardcore. I never snitch because I never know shit. So my son comes with his backpack on. First he goes to his brother's room. Wake up. Come on, we heading downtown. And then he goes downstairs. Get up. What are you doing? We're going. I'm like, this asshole. And I'm like, we are going. We said we was going. We going. And so, you know, he gets his brother and gears his brothers up and then packs a backpack. I don't know what was in the backpack. And I'm like, y'all go ahead. We meet y'all down there. So they left. And then we got together and went. And I don't know, but somehow this march was it. They said it was 75,000 people. Should have been double that. Shame on you. Yeah. Shame on y'all. It should have been a lot more than that in a city this big. A city that's directly being attacked by these fascists. But hey, black folks said, you know, there was a lot of prominent black people saying it ain't our fight. No, we sit it out. So I was kind of glad because the last time I go down and protest, you know, I've been protesting in downtown New York and downtown Chicago. Since the Occupy movement. I think my very first, I've been to protest across the country from Kansas City to New York. But the protests since I've lived here, it's been a lot. But I went to And I've been to everything from peace rallies and peace protests, put down the gun, stop the violence. Those are my favorite. They got the best chants, most wanted. I've been to the Occupy. I used to go to the Occupy. I really enjoyed those because there were a lot of really bright people. I don't know where the fuck those people are today, but there was a really lot of bright anarchists and socialists and communists there to really engage with the 1%, 99%. But normally on the day of the protest, if you live in Chicago, you get on the train and the train is crowded. People got their protest sign. Nobody drives downtown to a protest. I don't know anywhere where people drive to a protest. And especially since the protest was taken off the street. And so like I was going to a joint protest to Friends of the Congo and a Congo and Palestine and Congo coalition to go and protest the extraction of coltan and the fueling of war through mineral extractions and the genocide in the Congo. So I went to that protest and you standing on the train. And so I went there and the train was empty. I'm like, God damn. But when I got there, I saw the ocean of people. So, but ain't a lot of people was going to that shit from the south side. I tell you what, maybe they came from the west side. But anyway, so, you know, I was expecting to be on the green line all hunched in, but nobody showed up from my part of town. What? What's it? What? Let's get some nude Air Force Ones and ask it. I don't get the jokes. Stop saying shit that goes over my head. Oh, okay. Okay. My wife picked these glasses out. So y'all making fun of her, not me. But I digress. So I get down there and the march was the march. And we marched around from the Daily Center down to Trump Tower. And we were booing and chanting and then marched around. Now, I've already discussed my position on demonstration, protest, and activism. And demonstration, demos, test, and acting in relationship to revolution. And what it really means to make protests relevant to a larger struggle. And protest is a component of a larger struggle. Protest is not the struggle. I've already gotten into that. But there was a lot of people that I've been hearing, and I swear to you, I think these people, many of these people are agents that say that black people, this ain't our fight. That black people should not be involved in the ICE protest. Black people should not be involved. Now, there's several courts from this perspective. So I want to deal with the court, the various conflicts from this perspective, right? And I'm gonna try to get through this quickly because I don't have a lot of time and I haven't even packed yet. You know, I don't know about a trip 4 months out and packed hours before I'm leaving. I don't know what's wrong with me, you know, but I haven't packed yet. And there's some things I got to pick up. The only thing I have ahead of time in prayer for is my cookies and my candy bars. I got that for the road trip. And I used to have to gather my CDs. I used to be really good at collecting CDs and curating the soundtrack for my road trips. Man, I used to be the best at that. Man, if you were road tripping with me, you know, you'd really be in for a treat. But now it ain't no more CDs. I still have my CDs, but the cars don't play CDs no more. So what are you going to do? I digress. So let me tell you some of the people that are saying dumb things about black people's participation in the opposition. And let me tell you this also. There's no such thing as an anti-ICE protest. ICE is a fascist formation that is carrying out the illegal orders of a larger fascist movement. So you can't just say, well, I'm just going to oppose one component of fascism. You have to fight fascism on all fronts. So even if you got a social security card, even if you have to oppose ICE, You can't. Oh, we, with ICE, we don't fuck that. And I went and looked. I read some of the articles, and I looked at a few videos. I couldn't really stomach them to try to understand people's various arguments for Black people sitting out the struggle, not participating in the struggle. And now let me give a caveat. I love the fuck around and find out community. I said, as I was looking into this, there's this one woman of Mexican descent who was born in the United States, an educated U.S. citizen, and she voted for Trump, and her father is in a detention center. And this heifer went live on TikTok or some social. She went live. I saw it on YouTube, but I don't know where she originally went live because somebody got it, snatched it down. This heifer went live and called the detention center. She called the detention center where her father was held in custody. And she was live streaming while she was on the phone. You know, the recorded message, you have reached so-and-so, and please press this, press that. And she's like trying to navigate that system. And they give her a runaround and eventually are like, step off, ho, step off. I'm doing the hump. Get off the phone. And then she called the law offices. And she called the lawyer they had. And the lawyer was like, yeah, our appeal for an immediate stay was denied, and this was denied, and the courts just shutting this heifer down left and right. And she's live streaming this, and I'm looking at, man, if I was a different type of man, I was sitting there. Man, I almost had to pull out the baby oil and the towel, because I'm like, I'm enjoying this too much. Oh, see, I go too far. There's too much honesty. I know. I used to think there's no such thing as too much truth. I had to see that. I thought it was hysterical. And I watched this thing, and she's live streaming it, and she's just running into walls, trying to get her father out of the detention center, and he's about to be deported, right? And I was laughing, and then at the end, they play that song, oh my God, I will vote for Donald Trump. No, I will vote. Fuck, that shit's a slammer. I'm gonna have to pull that shit down because they got a remix. I will vote for Donald Trump. I'm like, yes, that is appropriate. Mock these motherfuckers, expose these motherfuckers, demean these motherfuckers. And what's that German word where you take pleasure in someone else's harm or demise? What's that German word? Everybody knows that word except me. I hear it all the time. Whatever that German word, when you take pleasure in someone else's hardship and demise. I love that shit. So I think everybody, that's it. Schadenfreude. Thank you. Who said it first? Everybody. Thank you, chat. Schadenfreude. I don't know. I'm not pronouncing it right. But whatever. I mean, Schadenfreude till you can't Freuden no more. And that's believe you me, I'm not saying stop it. Do more of it. Send me the links to all them videos. I love that shit. You know, Schadenfreude. Fuck around and find out. That component is appropriate. And I consider myself an empathetic and humane man, but I'd be like, fuck you and your daddy. As Bobby Wright said, I don't hate you. I hate your parents for having you. You voted for Trump. Let the hammer come down. Even if and I'll go further. Arkansas with their natural disasters, all these red states that are experiencing these natural disasters, them goddamn coal states, Appalachia that voted red. And now Trump has done away with all the scrubbers and the regulations limiting the emissions from coal plants, the polluting the water. They can freely pollute the waterways, pollute the air, pollute the soil, and all these MAGA districts. Schadenfreude. So that's not. Now that I totally embrace that. So now let's get back to the core of my position. Black people, you can't be in Nazi Germany talking about, well, I won't protest the repression of the gays. Which, I mean, We got a lot of Dr. Fubar. Like when he rounds up the gays, that ain't our argument. And you're gonna wait for him. That's that poem when they came for the so and so. When they came for the communists, I wasn't a communist. When they came for the Jews, I wasn't a Jew. That shit is real. That's one of the realest poems. It won't be nobody around. You think that ICE cannot, with one executive order, be turned into an anti-gang squad? And you think that an anti-gang squad with the signing of an executive order become a armed, criminalized debt and come after people who hold back student loan debt, and they confiscate your property, and then they're going to open up debtor prisons? And you think that you're going to fall on, you're going to make a fucking list. Fascism is a cancer. It destroys everything, including other fascists. No one is exempt because it's an irrational madness. There's no way to adjust yourself or position yourself to be safe. So there's no aspect of this where we say, hey, we exempt. But let me tell you the worst people in all this. It's not our fight. The Kamala voters. The Kamala voters. Y'all are the worst ones. I did my part. You want to say black people not marching, black people? I did my part when I voted for Kamala. And there's so many videos of people out here weeping and moaning and gnashing their teeth about the horrendous Trump policies. I saw one where this man was losing his farm because of the tariffs, and his main exporting grain to China, and China's like, we don't want your redneck racist grain. And he's like, my farm, there's no external markets and there's no internal markets for me to pivot to. I'm destroyed. And then he was like, we need help. And the sister was like, I helped you when I voted for Kamala. Let me tell you, Kamala voters, bless your hearts. And at the same time I say, bless your hearts, get the fuck over yourself. You have not done anything good for humanity with your vote for Kamala, even if she had won. That is nothing to brag about. That is nothing to fall back on. You made a less irrational choice. You made a less evil. You made a lesser evil choice. That you didn't do a good thing. You just did a less evil thing. Because we would still have to be in the streets under Kamala. Under less, and I will say, you can't say Trump is worse than Kamala by many degrees. Trump is worse than Kamala. But something being worse than something doesn't make it good. That's the problem. They're both bad. And they both require and demand that the people take to the streets and organize from the ground up to subvert the power structure, the status quo. So it blows my mind that so many people from TikTok to the streets are out here talking about, I did my part. I voted for Kamala. You know what? Somebody's like, oh, I got terminal cancer. Well, I did my part. I voted for kidney failure. And I'm going to tell you, I've said this before. Let me tell you how my voting history. When I lived in Missouri, a red state, I voted for Obama, his first term. I generally would vote for the Democratic ticket when I lived in a red state. When I moved to New York, the first time I was in New York, I was in my freshman year in college. First year I was eligible to vote. 1992 in the Clinton race. It was Clinton versus Bush. And I voted third party. I think, Ralph Nader. I don't even remember. It was a long time ago. I think I would vote. When I lived in New York, I voted for Ralph Nader for president. More than once. Because I was in a blue state. Here in New York, same thing. I knew Chicago and the state was going to go to Kamala. I wrote in Socialist Party. Because I'm strategic. I'm not fucking emotional. But I got homies in red states. I'm like, Got to do what you got to do. Got to be intelligent, be cold, distant, calculating, strategically. So first thing, let me just keep it going. Voting for Kamala was a more rational choice than voting for Trump. But voting for Kamala was not a good thing, a positive thing, a revolution thing, or even a solution to most of the problems that plague our community or the world as a whole. Kamala is capitalist. She was imperialist. She was for the police state, the mass surveillance. She was a Zionist. She supported the military budget. She would have signed off on increases in the military budget. I think her deportation progress, she would have worked to sustain or intensify deportation, but I don't think she would have so blatantly violated the due process. So she would have done a bad thing in a more reasonable and lawful way. But you can be lawful, but the law in the United States isn't good. So I do believe that Kamala would have been more lawful than Trump. Kamala would have respected the constitutional and the judicial process more than Trump. But even within the judicial process and constitutional and federal law, there is an enormous amount of fucking injustice. I do think that there would have been a better push towards reinstituting women's reproductive rights, and that's nothing to shake a stick at. I do think that there would have been more positive incentives towards green technology. I do think that the positive components of services that the people pay for from the government, the loans and healthcare, making healthcare more affordable, reducing the cost of pharmaceuticals, there would have been some things that we could define as positive, not as revolutionary, not as liberation, but as something to provide some relief and harm reduction. There would have been a lot more relief and harm reduction for the working class people and the masses, and I don't discount that. I don't discount that. I have no problem with diabetes medication being more affordable as we work towards revolution. But we would have still had to be in the streets for Kamala's positions, just like with Obama. If you didn't protest, if you weren't part of any type of movements in opposition, condemning the actions, the drone bombings, I took to the streets with the Occupy movement. I took to the streets with Iraqi veterans for peace. I took to the streets under Obama. I would have taken to the streets under Kamala. Now, when there's a Democrat or liberal administration, neoliberal, ain't no more liberals in the U.S. government, a neoliberal administration versus a fascist administration, your strategies and tactics have to change. But you've done no good for no one, and you weren't bringing any type of justice to anyone. So please stop saying I did my part when I voted for Kamala. The world is a raging inferno. The world is a raging inferno, and one person wants to throw gas at it. One person wants to throw gasoline on the fire, wants to throw buckets of gasoline on the fire, and another person says, well, I'm going to put the gasoline in small squirt bottles and just squirt gasoline on the fire, and I'm going to make sure that minorities, transgender people have an opportunity to squirt themselves. So I want to diversify who's able to put gasoline on the fire, and I wanted to reduce the methodology. I want to have a more regulated method for putting gas on the fire. Neither one of them motherfuckers are putting the fire out, because the fire out is capitalism and white hegemony. Both of them supported capitalism. Both of them supported white hegemony. One of them, under capitalism and white hegemony, did have some programs and policies in place to provide some relief for people. So you're on a sinking ship. I don't know how many more analogies I can give, but you're on a sinking ship. And one guy says, well, we're going to send all the poorer people, all the migrants and refugees, we're going to send them down to the bottom of the ship. Then another person says, well, we want to allow them, a few of them on the upper deck and some of them in the middle deck. We want to spread the people on the boat out a little evenly. And we want to provide opportunities for the people at the bottom of the ship to work their way up to the top of the ship. And that's the difference. The ship is still fucking sinking. So those folks saying it's not our fight, and mostly these are black liberals, mainstream black liberals. Now, everybody hates, like, I have sympathy for liberals. Liberalism is only as good as the status quo is. Because what liberalism argues is that liberals say the opportunities and rewards in the society should be offered to a wider range of people. The opportunities and reward in society should be offered to a wider range of people. That's what liberalism means. In that sense, liberalism is good when the status quo is good, or if it's within or allied with those that are fighting to change the status quo. So liberalism argues that in this status quo, we need more women to be in the armed forces. We need more access to public facilities for transgender people. We need scholarships and funds. We need welfare. We need housing vouchers. We should negotiate. What liberalism in the United States argues is that more people should be able to enjoy the spoils of empire. More people should be allowed to participate in the upper levels of imperial overreach. The reason why liberalism is bad, because they took an idea that was initially positive. It's no different than other positive things like nonviolence, or positive things like being open and collective. Being nonviolent is a good thing. I'm nonviolent. But nonviolence in the face of fascism, racism, imperialism, colonialism, genocide, and ecocide, refusing to engage in violence becomes a negative. If you are in a humane and just society, and you say within this humane and just in society, this humane and just struggle, I'm not going to be violent, that's a good thing. So whenever I've joined an organization, within the organizations I've been in, I've always been extremely liberal. When I join an organization, a black formation, I'm like, we got to focus on animal rights. We got to focus on environmental. There has to be, where the sisters at? Where's the voices of the sisters? And later, I wasn't always this enlightened, but I later learned where are the gender non-conforming folks, where are the youth? So there are black organizations where revolutionary, even where people within those organizations are conservative. But the U.S. political system has distorted the concept of liberal conservative. They have distorted it. Like, the United States is a good place, and within this good place, you have people that are conservative and people that are liberal. When that should be the defining line and the number one determinant of your political stance. What are you, a liberal or a conservative? When they should be asking, are you capitalist or anti-capitalist? Are you imperialist or anti-imperialist? There are conservative anti-imperialists. There are conservative communists. I know a lot of communists that are very conservative, but they're revolutionary because they oppose the status quo. There are a lot of conservative black people that are against white hegemony and capitalism. But then you start to ask them about women's rights, youth movements, LGBTQAI, and all of a sudden they turn into fucking, what's his name? I need to stop. They turn conservative as fuck. So we feel that because liberals within the dominant status quo, in the dominant paradigm, because there are liberals in there, We should reject liberalism. And I see a lot of conservatism and reactionary ideas because people don't want liberalism, because liberalism, they think it's Obama. And Obama was a conservative. Obama in his governance and his political positions was more conservative than Nixon. They just called him a liberal because he said, okay, I think gays should be able to get married. So it's very hard to have this discussion because we believe the Democrats are liberal and the Republicans are conservative, and that's the political spectrum. Or even less intelligent people say there's no difference. The left and right wing of the same bird. These overly simplistic and often inaccurate analysis. But you have a lot of black people who say it's not our fight because many black people, foundational black Americans and ADOS, say that the migrants are the enemy. They have fully embraced the myths and rhetoric of the conservative right surrounding immigration and migration. They say these people come here to take our jobs. They displace us. They do this. They do that. And so they support. It's not only do they say this isn't our fight, they say, no, this is our fight. We just got to join the other team. There is even black people who supported and rallied around Trump saying that the birthright citizenship didn't apply, only applied to black people. Birthright citizenship only applied to black people. And he wanted to repeal the amendment that asserted that if you were born in the United States, then citizenship is bestowed upon you. And people are like, yeah, Trump is tell the truth. And I asked them, stupid motherfuckers. I say, what if he makes it retroactive? Every single black person, my 90-year-old great aunt, my grandmother's baby sister, their citizenship is passed down through birthright citizenship. So you think that Mexicans, Hondurans, Haitians, Nigerians that were born here and got automatic citizenship will be the only people that lose their right to citizenship? Not only that, even though black folks have had citizenship from day one, the United States has never respected our citizenship status. We went from chattel property, subhuman 2/5, to what they call second-class citizens. We have never been fully covered by the U.S. Constitution. There have been government and private industry. Government and private industry in the United States has waged political, economic, biochemical warfare, academic, ideological warfare against the black community from day one, since Reconstruction till now. So you want these motherfuckers to start playing around with the very concept of citizenship. And you want to celebrate other people being denied citizenship because for some reason you think other people having access to citizenship somehow diminishes your citizenship, when before you go back and look at U.S. history. The United States has been playing games with immigration from day one. The United States immigration policy has incentivized white migration and reduced non-white migration from the Middle East, from Latin America, even from places in Europe. There was a time they didn't want Catholics in the country. They didn't want Irish in the country, people who were insufficiently white. Southern Italians, Swarthy, as they call them, people. They didn't want them. They didn't want Slavs in the country. And throughout the U.S., look at the times when the U.S. has banned the immigration of Asians, the Chinese, banned the immigration of East Indians, Southeast Asians, banned the immigration of Muslims. How did that ever fucking improve our standing and our status in this fucking country? When has the U.S. ever suppressing the entry in this country of people it deems not white enough ever boded well for us? When have we ever gotten trickle down or a byproduct of benefit? So y'all acting like these white conservatives, these white fascists. I'm suffering. And if I can't get relief from my suffering, I can at least get pleasure from somebody suffering more than me. United States has been barring people from this country for generations. It has never harmed us or helped us because our fate is predestined. And I understand many of these people, I'd be the first to call it out. Many of these people come to this country having never had any interaction with black folks, and after 3 months being in America, they know blacks are bad. They come here and they adopt racist dispositions. A lot of them come here racist because Latin America, from Mexico down to Chile, Latin America is racist. Latin America is as racist as the United States, as discriminatory as the United States. And many of the people coming here that y'all call brown, that y'all call Hispanic, that y'all call Latinos, they are nothing more than conquistadors. They are Spaniards and Portuguese, and they got the same disposition as the Spanish and Portuguese. I know that all too well. From being in Panama, being in Uruguay, I've been down there, saw it with my own hands. Jim Crow, is Jorge Crow. Jorge Crow, you go south of the border. He said if you south of the Canadian border, you in the South. If you south of the American border, you're in the South. There is discrimination. There is racism. There is colorism. There is incarceration, policing. In Brazil, I told y'all not to watch the fucking Brazilian Olympics because death squads was murdering black children and purging black people from their communities to build the Olympic grounds. Racist as fuck. Even in our beloved Cuba, the Soviet, the Russian, and supported socialist government of Cuba had black people sitting in the back of the bus and drinking out of separate water fountains. So I tell you, yes. But then you take the position that fascists can protect you from racist. So I've been telling black folks for the longest time, stop saying brown. Latin American people are not brown people. Latin America, the makeup of Latin America, the racial makeup of Latin America is white, African, indigenous, Asian, and then for the mixed people, the mestizos, the various mixed races of people, depending on the outcome of that mixed race, the lighter mixed race are higher in the higher racial hierarchy, the darker mixed races are lower. Same shit we got going on here. That's something to be understood. But I have to tell you something about our presence in the United States. The problem is not the presence or absence of immigrants. The problem is our vulnerability. And black vulnerability, meaning that if you come to the United States, first thing you have to do, whether you're a South African, a Vietnamese refugee, a Hmong refugee, a Laotian, a Korean, a Mexican, a Cuban, an Honduran, a Panamanian, you come to this nation to make a better life. The rules for making a better life is you gotta find a population to exploit. Everybody that lives a good life in this country has found a vulnerable population to exploit. The people at the top of the economic food chain, the white people, preyed upon African people and native. They stole native land and they expropriated African labor. And then they wrote policies to redistribute the wealth and maintain it amongst themselves. So if you want to come to the United States and make a good life for yourself, to help your family, and you can't do it by working hard. Working hard don't mean a goddamn thing. Working hard, nobody's gotten rich as hard work. You have to pray hard. And by pray, not P-R-A-Y, but P-R-E. You have to pray hard. And so you come to this country, you go to a country where people are, where the economic progress is rooted in preying upon vulnerable populations. Who is the most vulnerable population? Who is the population that has been most consistently suppressed and attacked? Native Americans. Native Americans. But the problem is Native Americans, due to the concentration camps, y'all call them reservations. Dale Jones says reservation is something you get at a hotel. Those are concentration camps. You can't go there to exploit them, but they're not a very viable population due to the genocide that they're still ongoing, has reduced their number, and their concentration has reduced their presence throughout. So if the native population is not ripe or available, but the problem with the natives is if you got here late, they've been tapped. So the next population that you prey upon is not black people, believe it or not. Most migrant communities prey upon their own. There was a raid here a few years back, and there was this Honduran migrant community, and this woman set up these lodging houses, which were basically single family houses. She put like 75 bunk beds in a one family house with 2 bedrooms, and put bunk beds in the basement, bunk beds, and they would come there and sleep. She'd take their money. If they had papers or documents, she'd take their documents, basically hold them hostage, send them out to work day laborers, and take all their money. The number 2 population, if you really want to get ahead, is you move into your own community with your own people, and you start to prey upon the newer people and the most vulnerable people in your own community. That's the next vulnerable population. After that, you go after the black folks. It's only logical. And it doesn't matter whether you're a conquistador from Colombia, or you're a Nigerian from Lagos, or you're an Ethiopian. I knew an Ethiopian pretty decent brother. And he started a small Ethiopian restaurant. And then he went and opened gas stations and convenience stores and selling. And that's the nature of the system. And you get mad at the people who take advantage of the system, but you don't get mad at the system itself. In fact, you get mad at the people taking advantage of the system because they displacing and getting in your way for your opportunity to take advantage of the system. Because what do these black people do? Rick Ross, and it was one other, I can't think of it right now, it ain't matter, but Rick Ross was brought up on, Pinky, slutty vegan. Pinky and Rick Ross were brought up on labor charges. They were underpaying and sometimes exploiting engaged in wage theft, unfair labor practices, unsafe working environments. There's a whole documentary about the Rockefeller records. I mean, Puffy, P. Diddy, Jay-Z exploiting artists and leaving them out, hanging them out to dry. So a lot of black people that say, well, they taking us, they taking opportunities from us. What they're really saying is, I don't get to be the parasite. I don't want anybody preying on my community but me. So it is inefficient. Let me tell you this. If Trump, because in my neighborhood, when I was growing up in Missouri, the convenience stores and the little sour, janky restaurants, those were all black owned. The gas stations, the filthy gas stations selling toxic food, it was black owned. You look it up, holler, if you know somebody from Kansas City, ask them about Good to Go. There was a whole string of businesses, Good to Go. And they were and all of their tellers would wear guns on their hip. And they would be, oh, Mama Dell. I ain't dissing Mama Dell. Chill, KC. I said, ask somebody if it's KC. Mama Dell was a treasure. We used to be in there playing ice climbers when we should have been going to school. So Mama Dell was a jerk too. They were very hostile. I remember my dad came once and was like, I don't buy. He came to the store in the neighborhood and was like, you look at these stores in the black community, many of them black owned. He said, banks have less security. He's like, I'm not giving my money to somebody that treats me like an animal. I'm not giving my money to somebody who treats me as a subhuman. So I'm not going to buy a pack of cigarettes or a pack of gum or some juice from behind bulletproof glass. And if you that fucking scary, get out the hood. Get off the block. And that was my last time shopping at Mama Dell's. But I have some fond memories of Mama Dell's. Rip. That was my spot too. We had many hours of escape from the hood there. Shout out to Mama Dell's. I wonder if they're still there. But anyway, all that to say. But I was talking about Good to Go. And I remember when Good to Go was there was this one sister, me and the other cat that I know was hanging out on the block. And this sister came out of Mama Dell's almost in tears. And she looked at us and was like, I'll be glad when the Indian people or the Asian people come and open a convenience store, because I don't like how they be treating us. And they were even at that place. My brother went into a Good to Go and they got my brother locked up. He got into a verbal confrontation with the person, and he was getting like a chili cheese dog or something, and he left it on the counter and walked out. I was like, I'm not shopping here. That was the Good to Go on Prospect and Gregory. And we had a spot called across the street called The Front, which was a bookstore poetry house. Shout out to Jamal. And so he was there actually helping us set this book stuff up, hang the shelves, paint the ceiling, all that shit. And we were over there working, and the cops came and knocked on the door and was like, yeah, there was a confrontation, this and that. I mean, they didn't take him to jail for that, but they called the police. He had some other warrants. But anyway, you'll notice, regardless of a person's immigration status or racial status, nobody gets ahead in this system without preying on someone. All billionaires are parasites. Even the billionaires you like. That John Hope dude, Pinky, Jay-Z, LeBron James. These are economic parasites. So when we spend our energy focusing on the Koreans coming to our community, open stores, the Mexicans coming to our community to do the landscaping, instead of targeting the system that you might be successful in displacing. I remember I was called in to do mediation. And you know, by the time you call in a hater like me and to mediate a conflict within your organization, it's got to be horrible. But this brother was a landscaper, a black man. And he was all about black business and black power, boo, boo, boo. And he was a prominent member in this black community organization. And he had threatened to leave this organization and step away from this organization because this organization did not support black business. And there were some socialist revolutions. So he was a black conservative. There were some socialist leftists in the community and were saying, we're not saying don't open a black business, but you have a lawn service business and you primarily hire felons, ex-offenders, people on probation, and you promote yourself to the community as giving someone a second chance, but you pay below minimum wage. You don't provide them with gear. You don't give them adequate gear. This is a dangerous job in very inclement weather, and you don't have proper health insurance or injury coverage for it. So you're exploiting these black workers and the community, and we need to, and you're in our organization that's out here fighting against corporate exploitation. And just because you're a small black-owned business does not give you a right to exploit these vulnerable workers and put them at risk. And if you need additional resources from the community to give these men the proper gear and proper equipment so that they don't injure themselves, he had a couple of injuries, and he just tell the brothers, hope you get better. Provide these men with insurance. You have to give them proper breaks. They're out there working in sometimes 85, 90-degree weather under the hot sun. You don't even have cool water breaks for them. So that was the conflict that I was mediating. You had some socialists and pro-black business people in the same progressive black organization. And he said, you need to focus on the white man and what the white man's doing, not focus on what black people are doing, tearing down your own people. So all that to say, our position on migrants as African revolutionaries, as progressive, intelligent, humane, empathetic. Number one, the territorial integrity of an empire is invalid. The territorial integrity of an empire is invalid. What that means is anytime a nation imposes its political and economic and military strength on nations beyond its border for anything other than national defense, it is an imperialist nation. And if you are violating the territorial integrity of other nations, no one is obligated to respect your territorial integrity. So for us to take a stand against illegal immigrations is us validating and aligning ourselves with the U.S. empire. And the only reason people come here from other nations is a byproduct of Western and U.S. imperialism. So we solved the migration crisis by fighting the U.S. imperialism. And all of our energy and resources and condemnation does not go to people escaping. That's step one. Number two, we are obligated to educate and radicalize our brothers and sisters coming here. I had a young woman that worked as a waitress at my restaurant. She was her junior and senior year in high school. She was from Sudan. And when she came to work for us, she said, Black Americans are not Africans. And Black Americans, she had been told by other members of her community to stay away from Black Americans. They're lazy, they do drugs, they don't do this. And she thought that my wife and I, as young business owners, were special, different somehow, that we weren't like Black Americans. And we worked with her. We spoke with her. We asked us I introduced her to members of MBUF. I remember Dr. Linwood Tauheed. I mean, he was doing a channel on it, but Dr. Linwood Tauheed, a Black economist, he sat down and had a conversation with her. And he's a Muslim, and she was Muslim from Sudan. And he talked to her about Islam and the ravages of Bashir and the Janjaweed, and talked to her about the conditions. And so she said, if I'm born here, I'm not an African. And you were born in Africa. And so he asked her what about the Arab people who drove you, who took your ancestral land, committing atrocities? They were born in Africa. Are they Africans? And she said, no, they're not Africans. They invaded. And so he had some really patient discussion, which kind of bugged me out, because I've had several debates with Dr. Tauheed, and Dr. Tauheed would rip my head off. He'd jump up and down on me with both feet whenever we'd have our little tete-a-tetes. But he was so patient and understanding. Long story short, this young Sudanese woman adopted a Pan-African perspective, a Pan-African understanding of history, identity, and solidarity. She began to accept African people who were in the diaspora. And one question my wife had asked her, he's like, so when you have children here, she's like, oh, my children will be Sudanese. It's like, okay, what about their children? They will be Sudanese. So she said, at what point, as you live here in the United States, you were working to secure, your mother was getting citizenship for you, and you had refugee status. She said, when she was like, they will always be Sudanese. That's who I am. That's it. And he was like, so when did we stop becoming Africans? Was it our first year, the first generation, second generation, third generation? He was like, well, when you stop identifying your descendants as Africans, we'll stop identifying it. So anyway, all that to say, and she met some crazy militants too. There was a lot of people that were, but there were a lot of, because this Cafe C was a hub for all the radical revolutionaries and organizations in the city, in our restaurant. And anyway, long story short, she wrote me and my wife a beautiful letter. She had graduated high school, quit work, and went off to college, I believe in Texas. She sent me this thing, and she said, now that I'm out from under my parents and I'm out here on my own and I'm having my own experience, you were right about these white folks. You were right about this, and I really appreciate it. It's a wonderful letter. It was an email, it wasn't a letter. We need to start writing letters again. But all that to say, our role as revolutionaries is to revolutionize others. That's one of our key roles. We do not protest or complain about anybody trespassing on the plantation. We accept that a lot of people coming here will already be pro-capitalist and racist and all of that. We have to work on our various vulnerabilities. Uniting with fascists to oust people from the country does not in any way reduce our vulnerability. In fact, it harms it. There was somebody I was talking to, and they were talking about here in Chicago, and they were talking about how we were talking about the Target boycott. And I'm like, yeah, fuck Target forever. I ain't never going back to Target. And that says a lot to me because most of the boycott the NFL. I say good. I've lived a good life because 90% of the community's boycotts was shit I don't fuck with already. By the time the community cancels somebody, it's likely I haven't been fucking with that person for years. You know, so boycotts generally are pretty easy on me. Pretty easy. And that don't stop me. People say we're gonna boycott the NFL, and I still get to stand up and say, right on, I'm a righteous man, even though I never watched the NFL to begin with. But that Target boycott, it got me, man. That's one I had to work on because I had become, I'm sandwiched by Targets. There's a Target Roosevelt and the Target in Hyde Park, and I'm in the middle of both those Targets, and it was just mad convenient, and they used to have like the Method products. They had a whole slew of products that were natural, non-toxic, environmentally friendly products that I had been using for years. I just go to Target, get my cleaning product and stuff, and they had a natural. So I was a Target shopper. But I was happy to boycott. But anyway, we were talking about that, and then he was talking about, man, not only they DEI shit, they don't even do the gay, they don't sell the Pride Month stuff. And he's like, but he pointed out that it was all tokenism anyway. They never really cared about DEI. They never really cared about Pride Month. They never really cared about black people. It was all an act anyway, so it doesn't matter. And I said, you went too far. I was totally agreeing with you when you said it doesn't matter. No, I was totally agreeing with you when you said it was all fake. They didn't give a fuck. These corporations only care about money. But then when you said it doesn't matter, that's where you lost me. And let me explain to you why. Now, it does make a difference. Because guess what? Target cares as much about the gay people as it does the evangelicals who are targeting the gays. Target cares much about the neoliberals as they do the fascists. So Target was pandering to the gays and black folks. If you ever been to the Target Black History Month and Juneteenth displays, and one thing about Target, that if you ever go and look at the Juneteenth and look at the Black History Month displays, and they would have these black designers and have their faces up. The day after, March 1, they'd mark that shit off 90, 89%. They'd mark that shit off 105%. They pay you to take that shit. So that was my thing. I'd go through and look at the Juneteenth and the Black History display and these black designers who got who secured the Target bag, and I'm like, that's a cool T-shirt. That's a cool keychain. Oh, they had a chessboard one year, and I'm like, March 1st, I run in there and they were like, get this shit out of our store. I loved it. And I wasn't going to complain that they marked that shit down like so fast. Same thing for Pride. If that's the shit you want to get into, they marked that Pride to go. But it's over. It was a good run, man. It was a good run. But I said, my point was, I'm sorry, I continue to digress. My point was, when you have multinational forward-facing corporations pandering to fascists, they don't care about the evangelicals any more than they care about the LGBTQAI+. They don't give a fuck about either group. About the evangelicals, they don't care about MAGA. They don't give a damn. They care about MAGA as much as they care about BLM. But when you see the forward-facing media propaganda and corporate apparatus, you need to pay attention to who they're pandering to. Because when you look at who they're pandering to, and you look behind that curtain, that is the tide. Because these corporations, in their pursuit of profit, have to be aware of social and societal trends. And if they stay out in front of the trends, they can continue to be profitable. If they fall behind the trends, then another corporations like Whole Foods will get gobbled up by a more forward acting like Amazon. So corporate capitalism is cannibalism. So you're either consuming your competitors or being consumed by your competitors. There's no ongoing until a monopoly is reached. So the fact that you can say, well, now the multinational corporations and the universities are pandering to the fascists. They're pandering to the right wing. They're pandering to the overt racist. They're pandering to the evangelical theocrats. That is a sign that the power in society, that the society is reaching an even more intensified, rapid rate of regression. And yes, when you move from insidious background sneaky racism to overt in the streets spit in your face racism, that is a step backwards. So many of these smart black folks that sit there and talk about ain't no difference, Democrat, Republican, these corporations, ain't no difference. That is literally the frog in the water analogy. The temperature slowly being turned up. The whole point of turning up, because you go to the frog in the pot and you say, hey, frog, shit is getting worse in this pot. And the frog said to you, ain't no difference. The temperature in this pot is the same. The temperature in this pot, the liberal temperature, ain't no different than the conservative temperature. The Democratic temperature ain't no different than the Republican temperature. The Kamala temperature ain't no different than the Trump temperature. What kind of fool is you? And people will say, you say, hey, the toad in the pot analogy. Everybody know that analogy. And I see people not only living that analogy, but pushing that analogy and completely fucking missing the point. If you say there's no difference between Democrats and Republicans, Trump and Kamala, that's literally the temperature has been turned up another degree. And if you could not mount effective opposition to neoliberalism, because I'd be the first to admit, I can't deny it, it's all over my socials, that neoliberalism is the seed that gives birth, that grows fascism. Neoliberalism is a byproduct of fascism. If you have a neoliberal capitalist economy, you're going to fall into a violent fascism. And the fascists always expand and intensify conflicts. Internal race conflicts, external national conflicts. That's very fucking clear. And y'all sit back and say, look, oh, Obama, because of Obama's failure, because of Clinton's failure, now we got, but what about our failures? Because it was never their fucking job to liberate us. It was never their fucking job to stop the onslaught. They were part of the onslaught. I agree. So the fact that we're in naked, full-blown fascism as a byproduct of neoliberalism, and we leave ourselves exempt because we were smart enough to see it. But we weren't smart enough to stop it, to reverse it, to even slow it down. We're not even smart enough to call it out now. We're acting like, hey, it would have been like this. It doesn't matter who was president. It don't matter who's your senator, who your mayor. As if there are no material, real-world consequences to administrations and their policy platforms being implemented or being retracted. So all that to say is, I have to wrap up. I didn't get to it. But the people, you didn't do anything good by voting for Kamala. You did not. You are part of the problem. If you are celebrating this, black people, we do not have the option. First of all, you should have been in the fight. I don't have to start fighting. Bruce Riley said, if you stay ready, you don't have to get ready. This is not our fight. This has been our fight. And we didn't inherit this fight from the Latino community. We inherited this fight from Malcolm, from Marcus Garvey, from Nat Turner. We inherited this fight from Assata Shakur. So it ain't about us. There has never been a time in the history of the United States where we had the opposition to sit out any struggle, because we are the struggle. And there was a time where we set the standard for the struggle. The Black Panthers, the Vietnamese guerrillas, Ho Chi Minh, the founder of the socialist revolutionary guerrilla movement, was a follower, a student of Garvey, and inspired by the Black Panthers. You had Brown Panthers, Yellow Panthers. You had Asian, everybody emulating, just like they imitate us twerking and imitate us trap music. You find trap music in places where there ain't no traps. You got Indonesia people. You turn on it, if you watch the videos, rap videos coming out of Indonesia, if it wasn't for the fucking language they were speaking, you think it came out of the Fifth Ward. But there was a time where we influenced revolution all over the world. And now we went from influencing revolution and sparking revolution across the world. Cross-pollination. The South African anti-apartheid movement was supported by Black folks. And I ain't talking about figures. Everybody was like, yeah, Mandela, but we were supporting the ANC. We were supporting political parties, not just charismatic figures. We were supporting movements. And now we send out movements. We ain't passing the baton. We fight ICE because ICE is fascist. We don't sit out because we got citizenship. When Trump has already made overtures to going after citizenship. Like I said, we might not be on the cover of the menu. We might not be on the first, second, third page of the menu. We might be on the back of the menu in fine print. But if they are successful in implementing fascist repression, fascist violations of human rights, of non-citizens, of non-gender conforming, that empowers them and emboldens them. There will never be a racist is never satisfied. Nothing is ever racist enough. Nothing is ever racist enough. So you feel real sophisticated sitting there. Yeah, DEI mostly produced white women. That ain't why they took it down, though. So yeah, I appreciate you got the facts on DEI and who was the primary benefactors of DEI. But who is the target? White women were the benefactors of DEI, but Black people were the target of the anti-DEI. Same thing with welfare. Same thing with the drug. At the height of the war on drugs, white people were the main consumers of drugs, but Black people were the targets. And you sitting there, and while they literally had tanks, talk about tanks in DC, they had tanks rolling through the south side of Chicago. Is Rip, you still in here, KC, Cano? Ask Rip the Crip. They were kicking in doors. They turned our little poor project, in our little housing project, with all these poor single mothers. At most, they could pull maybe $1,000 a week out of that little ghetto for drug addiction. And coming out of Johnson County, the third richest county in the whole fucking country, them white folks was buying whole coke wholesale, millions of dollars. And they had crash teams running up in the projects, and not one crash team ever, they were living in the fucking wealthy suburbs. So even when the fascists pretend to go after another group that you might even have issues with, because I got my issues, I oppose the Muslim ban. You know my position on Islam and Arab imperialism and Islamic imperialism. And I still have a principled stand against the Muslim ban. And it's the same goes. You heard, I've been telling y'all about this black and brown unity was a fallacy. The brown people don't exist. That group, that population was invented. The Hispanic Latino community was invented by Richard Nixon. That was another play of dilution and division. Latin America, the African people, there are more African people in Latin America than there are in the United States. There are more Black people in Brazil than the United States. And we calling them people brown. It's black and black. And every person coming from Latin America needs to be called out right there. What's your position on Latin American racism? What have you done to expose and combat racism in Latin America before you sit here and say, yeah, you can ask those questions at the same time y'all standing on the ice barricade. There's never an inconvenient time to bring this shit up. You can stand in full solidarity with Palestinians and ask your Muslim brothers, why are y'all committing atrocities in Sudan? Why in northern Nigeria? Why are Muslims in Libya got open air slave markets? and the crimes that Islam continues to do them both at the same time. Walking true fucking gum. And with that, I'm going to ask y'all for support. I got to wrap it up. I got to go dig out my suitcase. Shout out if you're in Lansing, Michigan this week, holla at your boy. Support the broadcast. This is our fight. We never sit out of any struggle. We define our position. We define our interests. We have every right to expose and advance our interests in the fight. And we can ally with the left. It ain't enough to just be brown. If you're not a brown anti-racist, if you're not a brown anti-capitalist, if you're not a brown anti-imperialist, then we don't hold solidarity with you. So even if you're coming out of a targeted community, yeah, ideology, race first, ideology, and then class. If you're a member of the elite, if you're an Arab oligarch or some mogul coming from Latin America, we don't unite with you either. This shit used to be simple. Y'all are ones that made it difficult. I don't have time for Q&A, but if you tune in, go subscribe to African World Order, because I don't have to ask you to subscribe here, because I know damn well you subscribe. I know you ain't going to play me like that and not be subscribed. Share this with your friends, allies, enemies, homies, cousins, and lovers. Share the show. Support Winning if you can. This account is in risk. I don't know why they sent me a hostilely worded message. Man, when your bills are paid, these companies are so nice to you. Welcome. Would you like to rate our company? How are you? Would you like to rate our service? But then you get behind this shit, all caps and red fonts. Damn, that's just scary. Anyway, please subscribe. I can't do this without you. This is a communal collective endeavor. Subscribe, and I'll see y'all next time. I appreciate y'all. Peace. Oh, wait. Do my outro. You know. Peace. Okay, let me come back. I have to say this. Black people, we've been in this country the longest, and we understand it the least. Neoliberalism and liberalism are different things. Next broadcast, maybe Wednesday on the Rational Radicals, we're going to talk about neoliberalism and neoconservatism. Because we think, hey, neoliberalism is liberalism. So I do think we need to understand these ideological terms, because they fly around our communities, they fly around our heads, and we don't grasp them, even though they impact us. Semantics really matters. Definitions, meanings matters. Your movement is only as good as your comprehension of it. And revolution is an intellectual